Welcome back. As we promised, we are going to continue covering the latest developments in the Middle East and efforts exerted by Egypt and other mediators to contain the situation and to stop the expansion of the conflict. A lot of diplomatic efforts, a lot of marathon talks among different top diplomats from Egypt, Qatar and the United States, and also summit talks as President Abdel Fattah Sisi, for example, received visiting French Foreign Minister Séjourné, and they tackled a number of issues of mutual concern, on top of which is the Israeli genocide war in Gaza. To shed more light on the whole issue and on the latest developments, we are very much delighted to have with us via phone His Excellency Ambassador Ayman Mosharafa, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for being with us, sir, and a very good morning.
A very good morning and very good morning to the audience.
Sir, let's start with this latest visit I mentioned in my intro and the efforts exerted by Egypt regarding this issue and the positive role played by France, as Stéphane Séjourné, French top diplomat, said that he was assigned by French President Emmanuel Macron to have a Middle East tour and to end or to wrap up the tour in Egypt, taking into consideration that Egypt is the pivotal player, or the country which is really playing such a pivotal positive role in trying to put an end to this madness or to this catastrophic situation in Gaza. If you please, sir, elaborate on that.
Yes, from the beginning of the crisis, Cairo was a magnet for all diplomatic efforts to try to stop the crisis. And I remind the audience that the first international conference after the 7th of October was convened in the administrative capital few days after the Israeli aggression.
Yeah.
Which gathered many, many leaders. So the visit of the French Prime Minister is in the cadre of visiting many, many officials and many important key players to Cairo. France is a member of the Security Council and is an important country concerning about the Middle East, and the tour of the foreign minister is not only for the Palestinian problem, it's for trying to diffuse and appease the tension in Lebanon too, because Lebanon is a key important file in the French diplomacy in the Middle East. So, I mean, the meeting was a very good meeting, and Egypt and France have a common view and a common agenda about how to diffuse the crisis. And the very important is to broker a ceasefire and to find a way to exchange the prisoners and the hostages in Gaza, and at the end of the day to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people since the beginning, and to find a way to assimilate the aid to the Palestinian people living in Gaza.
In the occupied, besieged, war-torn enclave. Sir, I'm asking this question because in the meantime, we're talking about the talks or the mediators who are trying or exerting the utmost efforts on the other side of the coin to try to convince the two sides to agree on this proposal, which was introduced earlier by Joe Biden, where he said that it's an Israeli proposal in the first place, and this was by the end of May, meaning 3 or more than 3 months ago. Egypt, Qatar and the United States mediators are trying on the other side of the coin to put an end to the current catastrophic situation, in addition to an expected visit by American Secretary of State Antony Blinken, as Joe Biden also said that Blinken is going to be today in Israel to continue with the marathon diplomatic efforts. How do you see all of these efforts combined together at the time that the Israeli strikes are continuing, whether on Gaza, on Jenin in the West Bank, or even in Lebanon?
Actually, the American has presented several times a proposal to end the crisis, and one of them is focused on how to exchange the prisoners between the Palestinians and Israel. So it will appease Israeli public opinion a little bit, and it will serve the American diplomacy. And at the same time, Mr. Biden has a keen interest to find an early solution for this crisis, because it will hurt the political image of the Democratic Party, and it will lessen the chances of Kamala Harris in getting elected. So he wants to make a breakthrough in one of the files in the Middle East, because the Ukrainian crisis is very tricky too. So he wants to make a breakthrough on one of the files for the re-election of his party. So that's why he is making different initiatives, calling Netanyahu, calling President Sisi, sending Blinken to the Middle East, trying to pressure Israel to find a solution or to accept the American proposal, and trying to help to talk to Egypt and Qatar to trying to pressure Hamas.
And to stop the expansion of the escalation, or not to widen the circle of violence. For example, yesterday, in continuation of the Egyptian diplomacy or diplomatic talks, Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati held phone talks with his Iranian counterpart, Ali Bakri Qani, and they discussed also the issue, and they both decided to continue with more contacts, with more consultations, to try to contain the situation and not to move the aggression or the conflict from an area to the other, because this is not in the best interest of the whole, not only the whole region, of the international peace and security in general. If you want to elaborate on that too.
Yes, from the beginning, Minister Badr Abdelati had several contacts with the Iranian. Even he went to represent the president in the funeral of the late President Ibrahim Raisi. He had several conversations with his Iranian counterpart to try to contain the tension after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. Because widening the tension in the Middle East is not the favor of anybody. It will reflect on the political situation, the economic situation as a whole, and it will drag the area to more bloodshed, more
retaliatory. I mean, it's going to be the domino effect. But before going to that, I'd like, sir, to know your vision about this killing or assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. Is it really a turning point, or it can be considered as something expected when it comes to the war or the Israeli genocide war, and focusing on eliminating or neutralizing, because they are using this term, the commanders of the resistance group?
Well, Israel, when any deal is very near to close, they are making a big bang, like the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. The assassination of Ismail Haniyeh was not only a target killing against the head of the Politburo of Hamas, but an aggression against Iran, because it was done on the Iranian soil. And Haniyeh was not on a bilateral visit. He was attending an international funeral attended by several leaders. So it was a pure act of aggression against Iran, with the target of trying to stop any breakthrough, because actually this act was an act of a pure aggression.
Yeah.
So I do feel that the Netanyahu is not very keen about closing any deal, because he knows very well that if the deals are closed, and the negotiation would succeed, his government will go down the drain. For a reason, his partner said it bluntly. Mr. Smotrich and Ben Gvir said, the day that Netanyahu will accept and will stop the war in Gaza, we are leaving the coalition. That means the collapse of this coalition government.
But this means that he is not going to take into consideration at all the very I'm not going to say crowds, but the pressure, if I may call it real pressure, from the inside, from the Israelis, and particularly the families of the hostages, as they are accusing him since day one that he is behind the killing of the hostages. And not to agree on a deal means that you are already helping, or you do already have a hand in losing the lives or the killing of hostages, because even Hamas said it until the moment that many hostages were killed as a result of the Israeli strikes on Hamas residencies or Hamas locations. If you want to agree on that or shed more light on this pressure.
The tactics of Netanyahu was always hanging onto his seat. His political survival is more important than the welfare of the state of Israel or the life of the hostages. And most of the political spectrum in Israel know that, because Netanyahu, if he will lose his seat, he will lose his political immunity, and he will be persecuted. And his political career will end dramatically, and maybe he will go to jail. That's why he is trying to make every tactic to prolong the war. And actually, he's very good in it. Netanyahu was a very good strategist in prolonging and creating tensions and creating problems. And each time the negotiation was on a deal, he is adding and subtracting more conditions.
Yeah.
And he knows that some conditions are not agreed upon Hamas and even Egypt and the negotiation. Like he is always creating problems about the Rafah crossing, about the Philadelphia access, about the Netzarim access. Always the devil lies details. In principle, he said it's okay, but after that, he is creating details which is a no-go item in the negotiation itself.
Sir, in every round of talks, in every meeting, whether among leaders, among top diplomats in the world, the responsibility of the international community is mentioned. And all the time urging the international community to shoulder its responsibility regarding the catastrophic situation in Gaza. Where is now the international community, or who to blame that nothing is taking place on the ground to pressure Israel to stop what they are doing? Can I blame the United Nations, the ICC, the allies of Israel? On top of the list is the United States, or it's a vicious circle and only what we call the blah 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 when it comes to the marathon diplomatic talks taking place all over the world to stop this issue?
I do feel verbal condemnation is good, it's moral, but the United Nations have no teeth except if they agree on a resolution under Chapter 7, which would coerce Israel at accepting a ceasefire. Otherwise, it will fall under a sanction regime, whether economic, whether military, whether whatever. But I mean, the international community is stopping at the threshold of verbal condemnation and putting together statements, and that's it.
Yeah.
But it was not translated on the ground to a sanction regime like they did to Ukraine. In the Ukraine war, they had the harshest economic sanction and travel sanction against Russia, even banning the Russians from the Olympics of Paris. And in the same time, Israel, the Israeli athletes were there.
They were even welcomed. Yeah.
I do see it's a pure double standard and hypocrisy, unfortunately.
And sir, I don't know when the world is going to learn the lesson that when something like that is happening in the Middle East, this does not mean that it has its negative impacts only in the Middle East. Now we are talking about, for example, statements released by the WHO only yesterday asking for a pause even in fighting to can on the ground vaccinate the Palestinian minors because they discovered the first case of polio, for example, in 25 years. In addition to chronic diseases, in addition to scabies and dermatitis diseases, in addition to a lot of things which can be a real threat, in addition to the economic issue and the security issue. Also, you don't see what I've said as another way of pressuring Israel to stop what they are doing, because this is a real threat to the international peace and security in general, not only to certain countries or to certain areas.
You know, the international community knows very well that the continuation of the hostility has a very negative impact on the maritime routes in the Suez Canal, in the Gulf of Aden, in even the Arabian Sea. And it has an impact on the prices of oil, because 80% of the oil consumed by Europe are coming from the Gulf area. So the continuation, and which will have an impact on the prices of oil and the prices of shipping. The prices of shipping have nearly doubled from the beginning of the crisis.
Yeah.
So the Middle East is a key area for the European economy. So the Europeans should move for the welfare of their economy and the welfare of their people. But I do not see any concrete action up to now.
Then we do not expect that the visit of today of American Secretary of State Antony Blinken to Israel is going to achieve any progress. And as far as I remember, or as I read, that no Secretary of State had all these tours or all these visits to the Middle East since Henry Kissinger in the 1960s or 70s. This mission in specific, is it going to be different, or it's going to end as other visits to Israel ended?
I'm keeping my finger crossed, and I pray that this visit will achieve a concrete result, or to have even a partial ceasefire, for the sake of the 2.3 million Palestinians who are living under the line of misery, and they are living in a catastrophic condition, without water, without electricity. 90% of the hospital are destroyed. 80% of the total infrastructure is gone. So they are living in the Stone Age. So I do hope that the Secretary Blinken will pressure Israel and will convince them to stop the hostility and to accept peace.
I mean, what's new in his agenda? I mean, what will make this visit different?
Well, maybe the name, the exchange of the hostages, the name of the hostages, the technicality about hostage exchange, and the partial Israeli withdrawing from Gaza.
I'm asking this question, sir, because both sides, whether Israel or Hamas, are accusing each other of taking this mediation efforts as only a way to seize the opportunity to be reinforced, or to seize the opportunity to regain their strength once again to continue fighting on the ground. And this is one of the main obstacles on the way.
I do feel with the saying, I will conclude with saying, if there is a will, there is a way. I mean, if there's a political will in Israel and in this coalition government to end this crisis and to end the suffering, but I do see on the opposite side that many Israelis are preparing themselves to attack Iran and to reduce Lebanon to the Stone Age and to start a new war in the south of Lebanon to eliminate the forces of Hezbollah. So I do not see a real quest for peace from the political elite in Israel. And at the same time, the ball is too in the hand of Yahya Sinwar. But I do not see how they will communicate with the new leader of Hamas, since he is not. It's difficult to be reached.
This was my coming question to you, sir.
Yeah. And I hope that the American foreign minister will reach something conclusive.
This was my coming question, sir, because many voices are saying that now with the inclusion of Hezbollah into the calculations and with the assassination of Fuad Shukr in specific, because this was another turning point, since we do not have representatives from Hezbollah in the talks, it's not going to work, because sometimes, or many would say, as Biden said it, I don't know based on what, that they are more close or closer than any time to reach a deal or to reach an agreement, while others would say, how you are going to reach an agreement while you don't have representatives from Hezbollah in the talks, or side by side the El Sinwar delegation or Hamas delegation?
Well, Hezbollah is not directly involved in the negotiation in Gaza, because the exchange of hostages, Hezbollah doesn't have any leverage. And Hassan Nasrallah said it bluntly, and I hope he is going to implement what he said, that the day that the hostility will stop in Gaza and there is a partial Israeli withdrawal and there is stop of the Israeli aggression, we will stop any kind of the military operation in the Galilee and in the north of Israel. So the key point for all the allies of Iran and all the hands of Iran in the Middle East, like in Iraq, like the Houthi in Yemen, like some of the militia in Syria, it will stop if there is a peace plan or a ceasefire in Gaza. So let's hope for the first key solution is to find a ceasefire and an exchange of hostages and a way to find an Israeli partial or full withdrawal from Gaza.
Also, sir, there are voices speaking about the marathon diplomatic efforts taking place not only between Egypt and other international partners, but among our top diplomats in the area, because Bou Habib, Safadi, I mean the foreign ministers, whether of Lebanon or Jordan respectively, are all the time in continuous contacts and consultations with our top diplomat Badr Abdel Ati, in addition to having all the time contacts with the concerned international bodies like the United Nations, like the UN, the UNRWA, like the WHO, to exert the utmost efforts, whether on the grounds or in talks, to find a solution for the current catastrophic situation, or to give a hand to the Palestinians inside the Palestinian besieged, occupied, war-torn enclave. How do you see those efforts among us here in the Middle East?
From the beginning of the crisis, the Jordanian diplomacy was working with the Egyptian diplomacy hand in hand through daily consultation, phone consultation or physical consultation, bilateral visit, trilateral visit, meeting on the sideline of international conferences, because Egypt and Jordan are the two countries which will pay the price from the escalation of the hostility. And the plan of some Israeli ultra-Orthodox is to expel the Palestinians, the West Bank to Jordan, and the Gaza resident to Egypt. So we know that Egypt and Jordan are in the forefront in the Palestinian history, and we are a key player. So that's why we are trying to do the maximum to try to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people, and to find a solution with our key international partners.
Well, Ambassador Ayman Mosharafa, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for your input, sir, and have a very good day. Right after the short break, we are going to return back with more, so stay tuned.